is our 5th edition, and we are commemorating 130 years of ASF.
I'm always proud to be here helping, representing the school. And as Daniela said, I'll be retiring in June. So this is the last time I will be here as the executive director, as I'll be retiring. I just want to thank the Alumni Council and their enthusiasm and their constant enthusiasm. And I remember several years ago, somebody with a bright idea, Maria Vidal, said, you know, we should do this and that. I said, wow, that's a big type of thing you're taking on. Oh, but we've got good people because we've got alumni backing it up. So I do think that that's very, very true. Our alumni always come through. And I especially want to thank this year's Alumni Council officers, Nicolas, Rodrigo, Claudia, and Daniela. And I can turn around and say, when Maria first started, she said, this is going to become a tradition. And he said, well, anything that happens twice at ASF, and especially with the alums, is cause for celebration and is a tradition. So it is. This activity is a fine tradition. And so I want to thank all of you for coming this evening. Your home, especially all of our alumni. This, we always remember, ASF is tu casa. And so enjoy your evening, and remember always to show your bare pride and know you're always welcome at ASF. Thank you very much.
Even now, he's like looking at me like, where are you going, Daniela? What are you doing? Everyone is going to be presented by a classmate that knows them well and can tell us something roasty about them. So, before I introduce you to the first introducer of a speaker, I would like to tell you about the virtual race, and I will tell you this again because it's really important. Diversity in this school is key, and the only way we can keep diversity is if we donate to help in financial aid. If we get to 1 million pesos this year, we get to dunk tank Mr. Paul Williams. So don't miss out on this fantastic opportunity to dunk Paul Williams. So please give a round of warm applause to Adolfo Crespo, who was board member from 2003 to 2010 y exalumno y se graduó en el 76. Un aplauso, por favor.
Hi, good evening. It really is awesome to be here in what it really is the best school in the world. Congratulations. You know how we all have mnemonic devices, so we all have our own personal language. Well, in my language, the name Sonia is a synonym of elegance, sophistication, class, and grace. Sonia and I go back a long way, so for me it's a great honor and a privilege to be before you on her behalf. Most recently, Sonia Arakelian Bodosian, a member of a 4th-generation American school family, has devoted most of her time to the Museo de Memoria y Tolerancia, a world-renowned Mexican institution which has bestowed upon this community eye-opening exhibits about the human condition and about why we should never forget our most terrible mistakes. Today, Sonia means many wonderful things to quite a few of us, but she excels in her major role in life as a loving mother, wife, daughter, sister, and friend. Please join me in welcoming Sonia Arakelian Bodosian, a true American school success story.
Wow. Thank you, Adolfo. That was too much. Anyway, thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'm so happy to be here and sharing this wonderful stage with these wonderful alumni, talented alumni. And I want to thank the American School for inviting me here tonight. This is quite an amazing auditorium. You know, when I was a little girl, I always wanted to be in one of the plays at the American School auditorium. So finally, when I came to high school, I said, I'm going to join the drama club. And I joined the drama club. And we were going to present Greece. And of course, I wanted to be Sandra Dee. So I practiced my song, and I practiced my song. And after the auditions were over, the teacher came up to me. She said, Arakelian, no, you're going to be the business manager, which meant I was going to sell tickets at the door. So anyway, after that, the next play came, and I was very persistent. And that was Thornton Wilder's Our Town. And I said, I'm sure I'm going to make it this time, because all the characters were dead. So I went to the audition, and after the audition, teacher came up and she said, Arakelian, no, backstage, makeup department. So that was pretty much the end of my acting career. But here we made very, very, very interesting things and very fun things as well. I remember being the representative with Adolfo Crespo for the Model United Nations, representative of Cuba, and then we did the first very breakthrough fashion show that I was part of the organizers, because we had the males and the females modeling in this fashion show for the first time. And Adolfo, and here we have two of the models, Ricardo Dadu, who was one of them, male models, and Adolfo Crespo. Anyway, this school gave us a lot of things. It gave us the opportunity of finding and building a sense of community, lifelong friends. For me, my friends, my classmates of the American School are not only my friends. They are my backstones. They are like my family, extended family. And I know some of you are here tonight and I represent all the class that's on the chat all day long. We are an extended family. An extended family, we're there for each other, and we have a big love for the American School. Anyway, this school didn't just give us great education, the best academic and faculty standards, the best installations compared to any school in the world. In this school, we learned many, many other things. And this school is special. It's very special and very unique in Mexico because here we had the opportunity of growing up in a multicultural environment. They taught us the values of tolerance, diversity, respect, truth, justice. And these are the values we are taught here to be embraced. So that makes us better human beings. And yes, they prepare us to be global citizens in a changing world. So how did it happen that 4 generations of Arakelian came to this school? The story goes this way. The 4 of my grandparents were survivors of the Armenian Genocide. And the Armenian Genocide happened in 1915, and it was perpetrated by the Ottoman Empire towards the Armenian people that were living at that time in what is known today as Turkey. This crime was perpetrated until today. The Turkish government does not recognize the Armenian Genocide, and the plea for justice around the world is persistent by many, many thousands of people, Armenians and non-Armenians. Anyway, my grandparents, being in the Armenian Genocide, were survivors. So on my mother's side, when they were saved finally by the Near East Relief, the American East Relief, there were 4 orphans. And in this place, she and my grandfather, who they met there, they both had learned, they were lucky to learn English before the war. So when the war was over and they had survived, the English language was very important to them because it enabled them to have better jobs. And this let them save some money, so finally come to Mexico, which this country received them with open arms, gave them the opportunity to rebuild their lives. And this is where my parents and I were lucky to be born. Anyway. So here we have some pictures. This was an article, clipping from the newspaper. You remember the newspaper long ago. It was called The News. And here are 4 generations of the American school, starting with my father's mother. That's another story, but all survivors that came to Mexico. Nelly Perchemblin, class of 31. And this is the first school. It was the first school that was built in Mexico. Later on, my parents, Arakelian and Arpipodosian, come to this school as we know it when it was first inaugurated. And of course, well, me, and then my children, and also their cousins, first cousins and second cousins, also 4th generation of the American school. Here they are laughing. Anyway, okay, so how did I get involved with the Armenian cause? My grandfather, Kirop Arakelian, was a very, very important leader of the Armenian community. In the 60s, he moved to Los Angeles because he knew there was millions of Armenians in California. So I observed him throughout the decades, throughout the years, in this cause, always looking for the recognition of the Armenian Genocide. When he died in the year 2000, after the burial, some of the people that he collaborated with in these organizations came up to me and they said, Sonia, we would like to see if you could to be close to us and continue participating in this organization your grandfather preceded and worked for. And I was like, well, you know, I was very honored and very thankful, but that was like an impossible dream. I lived in Mexico, and in Mexico there was a very small Armenian community and dispersed. Only recently we have an embassy 3 years ago. So I thanked them, and I was always in touch with them, but my life came here, what was going on here. But life takes many turns. And in the year 2006, I got a phone call by a very, very extraordinary woman, who's Sharon Saga, who is the president and co-founder of Memoria y Tolerancia. Memoria y Tolerancia, she's a co-founder with Millie Cohen. So she tells me, let's go and have a coffee. I want to talk to you. She knew about my Armenian origins. She knew that I was a fundraiser at the American School. I participated here in the Capital Gain campaign. We had a lot of fun with raising money and doing the lights of the stadium at the football field. So I sat with Sharon, and she starts telling me that she has this wonderful project, and she's building this museum, and in the process of its construction. And I was like, well, yeah. And she says, you know, we have a wing, a memory wing, and a tolerance wing. And in this memory wing, we're going to have the Holocaust and 6 other genocides. And among those genocides, we're going to have a hall for the Armenian Genocide. I was just like, what? This is happening in Mexico? I can't believe this. And she said, yes, and I would like you to collaborate with us and be part of this. And I was like, I remember, I still get goosebumps. I was just looking up at the sky. We were in a terrace. I started to cry, and I said, this is my call. This is what these meant in Los Angeles, they meant, and this is my grandfather sending me this. So this gave me the opportunity to have today the best job I could have ever dreamed of having. Memoria y Tolerancia. So I joined the team, an extraordinary team of fundraisers as well. We raised $30 million to build the museum. And finally, this museum was inaugurated by Presidente Calderón in the year 2010. And we opened the museum, and the Armenian Hall was there. The Armenian Hall is a small hall, but I consider it a huge hall because there's a lot of political issues when you're trying to fight for the Armenian cause or recognize the Armenian genocide. Turkey does not recognize the Armenian genocide, as I said. But this hall is there. And today, after 7.5 years that we've been open, 3 million people have passed through this room. So, after this, we decided in the year 2015 to make a special exhibition for the 100 years of the Armenian genocide in the temporary exhibition area with the direction of Linda Atach, who is the director of temporary exhibitions, and a wonderful team, and we produced this. And the exhibition was there for 4 months. 70,000 people came to this exhibit. And after this exhibit was closed, I decided I wanted to see if it was possible to take this to the United States. So I went to New York, talked to some people, then I went to Washington, D.C. Finally, I went to Los Angeles. And in Los Angeles, I found a group of Armenians that wanted to bring this exhibition to Los Angeles, and we did it with a lot of success. So we presented the exhibition, and it was a great success. We got an award. I was called to City Hall in California, and the Mayor Garcetti gave us an award for this exhibition. And, well, so how does that all connect here with Museo Memoria y Tolerancia, the American School? Museo Memoria y Tolerancia and the American School share the same values. We share the values of truth, justice, diversity, tolerance, peace, respect. And these are the things that we teach. These are the things that we try our students to creating awareness to embrace. At Museo Memoria y Tolerancia, we are a proactive museum because action without compassion is senseless. Today, we're seeing that the voices of discrimination and hate speeches are growing in the world. More than ever, we're looking at this. So it is important that we raise our voices. It is important that we demand. It is important that we participate in our communities, in our schools, in our societies, in the things that are not right in our countries, but we all must participate. But there is hope, because as much as those voices are being raised, I also see, and I have hope, that voices that are working and that care for human rights are also on the rise. And those are the voices that are going to change the course to have a better world, where peace and truth and justice will endure. Tonight, I take this opportunity to thank the American School. I want to thank the American School for the role that they played in my life in teaching me these values. These are the values that have given me the tools to do the work that I do today, in trying to make a difference in other people's lives as other people have made a difference in mine. Thank you.
So the way the school works is the Alumni Association gets a lot of support from the IA office. The IA office, or Institutional Advancement Office, is run by Cecilia Cepeda and Erika Arevalo, Mariana Beitia, and Ana Karina Piña, all alums, and they're responsible for all of this, so thank you guys. Next on, we have a couple of guys from 88. They're really misbehaved. They're really bullyable. And for this, I apologize, guys. Alejandro Webelman.
Go Bears!
Woo!
Sorry. It's been a while since I said that, okay. I'm gonna read, okay? I'm excited to introduce my BFF, Mauricio Culebro, or President Cule, like he makes us call him now. He's the operations president of Club America, no? But before I introduce him, I wanted to tell you a little bit about the person behind the president. I met Mauricio here at school. As you can see this beautiful picture. Check out the hair, 90s. Yeah. And believe it or not, I quickly realized that Cule easily found success. He was a new kid, he became the popular kid, and he dressed better than all of our dads, so that was pretty impressive. Like everybody at that time, we only talked about the typical high school boy stuff, girls and soccer. That was it. Then we also ended up going to the same college, and as we matured, we also started talking about more important stuff, girls, soccer, and work. Yeah. So it's not about me, it's about Mao. So he started working at Televisa Internacional, and when he told me he got an offer from Club America, it was like a dream come true. Not only because it involved two of our three, important topics, but because he could pursue one of his passions, which is sports management. However, once he started the day-to-day operations, it wasn't that easy. He worked 7 days a week, no girls, day and night, and there was a lot of pressure to bring the team back on top. But little by little, everything started falling into place. After the championship drought, they started winning again, and he started moving up the corporate ladder. And although this sounds great, it wasn't enough for Cule. He decided to put it all on pause. He went to pursue an MBA at SMU in Dallas. He married the love of his life, Andrea, which she's somewhere here. We should give it up for Andrea. Gracias, Andrea. Gracias. And when he came back as a VP. The team, which had been on a slump for the past few years, started winning. Coincidence? It's for you to decide. Throughout it all, he makes it look effortless, but his focus, dedication, and hard work while remaining humble, generous, witty, and really well-dressed has paid off. Today, whether it's player negotiations, brand partnerships, or implementing an innovative marketing style, he's always a person behind the cameras that's making it all come together. As you will see, he has never really liked the spotlight, which is why I am so excited forcing him to come here today, and I'm lucky to be the one that introduces him. Plus, he's been traveling a lot around the States. I've been seeing him a lot, and I think that I'm really interested in seeing how his Spanish is. So he's gonna just practice his Spanish. So without further ado, it's my honor to introduce the operations president of Club America, my BFF, President Cule.
Gracias, Minaki. Híjole, me encantaría poderles platicar cómo conocí yo a Chepo, pero creo que no es el buen momento para hacerlo. ¿Quién de ustedes piensa que el éxito de un equipo de fútbol depende de la cantidad de campeonatos o el número de títulos que tiene? En el fútbol, como en muchos otros deportes, hay ciertas cosas que no podemos controlar. El error de un árbitro, el hecho de que el balón bote en el poste, se meta a la portería o pegue en el poste y se salga. Pero también existen muchas otras cosas que sí podemos controlar. Y esas son de las que hoy les quiero hablar. En el Club América tenemos un compromiso con 40 millones de aficionados, los cuales quieren que su equipo gane, quieren opinar del equipo, quieren ser escuchados. Y además de todo eso, quieren sentirse parte de una comunidad. Para nosotros, el compromiso con estos aficionados no es solo cómo comunicarnos con ellos, pero sino cómo podemos generarles ese amor por el equipo independientemente del resultado del sábado. Les voy a enseñar un ejemplo de lo que hacemos en el Club América para conectar con nuestros aficionados. Imagínense ser un aficionado al América o al equipo que le vayan e ir a comprar el uniforme de la temporada y que en lugar de que se los vaya y se los entreguen por paquetería, vaya el cuerpo técnico y los jugadores y se los entreguen. Este ejemplo también es un buen ejemplo para explicar nuestro nuevo rol con las marcas. Los patrocinadores ya no solo quieren estar en la playera y que su marca se vea. Los patrocinadores quieren asociarse no solo con equipos ganadores que ganan muchos títulos, quieren asociarse con esos equipos que generan este tipo de engagement con sus aficionados. Tenemos un compromiso con la sociedad, además de ser el modelo a seguir para los niños y jóvenes e inculcarles el amor por el fútbol, por el deporte. Desde nuestra trinchera tenemos la capacidad de hacer la diferencia en las vidas de ciertos aficionados, de ciertos niños y de ciertos jóvenes. Y para nosotros eso es fundamental. Les voy a platicar la historia de César, el niño centenario. César estaba enfermo, el diagnóstico no era muy positivo y su sueño era conocer a los jugadores del América. Y esto fue lo que hicimos con César. Como pudieron ver, César no solo conoció a los jugadores, fue parte del equipo. Lo presentamos en conferencia de prensa, le firmamos un contrato, se concentró con los jugadores, salió a calentar con los jugadores. Y así como con César, en los últimos años hemos tratado, y creo que hemos tenido un buen porcentaje de bateo, en cambiar la vida de 200 niños. Tenemos otro compromiso con alrededor de 7,000 niños y jóvenes que van a las escuelas de la América, que son parte de nuestras fuerzas básicas y que sueñan con ser jugadores de fútbol. Desgraciadamente, solo 1 o 2 va a poder llegar a jugar en el primer equipo de la América. Y la gran mayoría no van a poder ser jugadores profesionales de fútbol. Con ellos también tenemos el compromiso no solo de enseñarles los principios del fútbol, Estamos comprometidos a enseñarles los principios de la vida, de los valores, del trabajo en equipo, de la educación, porque les tenemos que brindar las herramientas para que el día de mañana puedan enfrentar de mejor manera un mundo afuera del fútbol. Como en cualquier industria, en la industria del deporte, la parte de la tecnología y la innovación es fundamental en nuestro día a día. Tenemos un área de inteligencia deportiva, pues que igual suena cliché, pero sí un poco como la película de Moneyball. ¿Qué es lo que hacemos? Esa área se dedica a generar, analizar e interpretar estadísticas. Y con estas estadísticas y con la interpretación que hace, nosotros tenemos las herramientas para poder tomar mejores decisiones, tanto dentro de la cancha como fuera de la cancha. Y les voy a platicar un ejemplo de lo que hicimos. En una semifinal, en un partido de Copa América Querétaro, el área de inteligencia deportiva se dedicó a ver y analizar y estudiar a dónde tiraban los penaltis los jugadores del Querétaro. Antes del partido se las pasaron al portero y esto fue lo que sucedió.
Le va a pegar de pierna derecha y viene Martínez. Lo tiró al centro y con la rodilla Marchesín lo detiene. Aguantó todo el... 2-0 lo gana en América. Aquí viene el pájaro. Le pega. ¡Lo voló! Si lo falla se acaba. Aquí viene Stum. Stum. Le pega. Se acabó. Marchesín.
Bueno, este es un ejemplo perfecto de lo que pasa adentro del fútbol, ¿no? Y un poco la idea de platicarles lo que hacemos, que muchas veces es lo que hace que un equipo sea exitoso, porque los campeonatos son muy, muy importantes, o sea, muy. Es más, si no se dan, a lo mejor no tengo trabajo el día de mañana. Pero son cosas que sí podemos controlar, no del todo. Aquí hicimos nuestro trabajo, estudiamos a dónde tiraban los penaltis, se los pasamos al portero, pero el hecho de que el jugador lo haya tirado ahí, eso sí no lo podemos controlar. Hoy he venido a platicarles las cosas que se hacen en un equipo de fútbol y que son las que muchas veces la gente no conoce, pero que también tienen una injerencia total en el éxito de un equipo. A mí, el fútbol me ha enseñado que dentro de la cancha existen cosas que no puedo controlar. Pero también me ha enseñado que enfocándome en las cosas que sí puedo controlar, estoy mucho más cerca del éxito y son estas cosas también las que tienen un gran impacto en la sociedad y en la vida de la gente. Muchas gracias.
Vamos. Espero que no me estén esperando a mí porque le dije a Nicky que pasara.
Hugo, ahí está, gracias. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. There's nobody presenting me tonight because I'm not one of our featured speakers. But my name is Nicolás Santa Cruz, and I'm the president of the ASF Alumni Association. Thank you. The association is also known as ASFA, which is the acronym we're using. We've evolved in recent years. And just to tell you a little bit about what we do, with the support of the fabulous team here at the Institutional Advancement Office, as well as our association members, we organize this event every year and other events. You may know about some, you may not know about some others, but we can always tell you about them later. I'm going to take a quick break from the talk so you can get to know us better. First of all, our purpose is that we exist to help alumni stay connected to ASF. Also, to create impactful events and other initiatives and projects that build community. We try to leverage our network in the best possible way to have a strong impact. And finally, we serve as an independent and collaborative voice for ASF. Our mission is to engage, help, and connect alumni and also current students, because current students will become alumni before than they think. We also foster a lifelong commitment to the school through a heightened sense of pride and loyalty. Our vision is to aid the fulfillment of the ASF mission. This is a mandate of the Board of Trustees, but we've also taken it as our mandate, obviously in the proportion that we're responsible for. We want to remain as a key stakeholder in ASF and continue to be an active voice within the ASF community. We are all volunteers. Everybody on this list is a core group of active and participating volunteers. Officers steer the association and also represent ASFA within the ASF community through a lot of working groups and initiatives such as the Community Council, the Endowment Fund, and some other groups that we've been invited to participate in. Committee directors lead the actual working groups that we've separated in order to operate the association. So, for example, ASF Talks is a committee in its own because it's a very large event, as you can see. But we also have other committees such as Foreign Alumni Engagement, we have Culture and Values Preservation, Events and Hosting, and I could go on, but we have work groups for people that are interested in certain things and they want to participate and get involved in the association. Finally, our volunteer base is very diverse. We have almost 25 years of graduates spanning from the class of 1988 to the class of 2011. We also have diversity in members who are ASF parents, non-ASF parents, but who are alumni. We also have members of the PA, alums. We have a teacher in the association, and we also have school employees. Basically, we've been working on a lot of things, and one that I'm about to reveal to you, and I am revealing to the fellow members of the Alumni Association as well. They do not know this is happening. But we've been working together with the ASF communications team to make sure that we adhere to the ASF branding guidelines, and also a select group of talented alumni who are specialists in this area to create an identity, a logo. We've had some traction during the last years, and we think this is a culmination of our identity. So, without further ado, I want to present the new logo of the ASF Alumni Association. Just as our bear does in the logo, we as alumni look back to the past and reflect on what we lived here at ASF. And the association looks towards the future for what's coming next. And that's the way that we're operating, and that's what we're trying to do and bring to the school. So, if I can leave you with 3 takeaways. ASFA is committed to ASF, and we seek what's best for ASF. We're diverse, but we still need more help. We need more members, and we want even more diversity. So even though you saw a long list there, these events require a lot of manpower. So we need a lot of help, and we need that help to get to where we want to be. Finally, we're passionate, and we're organized, and we're ready to keep supporting ASF. So I'm about to end because I want to get back to the stars of the night. But a lot of people ask us, hey, how can I get in touch? How can I get involved? How can I participate? We have a lot of ways to do it. Let's start by seeing what are the on-ramps of how you can communicate with ASF and get news from ASF. There are various ways to do that. For example, our Instagram page, our Facebook page, our Twitter handle. The email, I guess this is very small, but it's alumni@asf.edu.mx. Pretty self-explanatory. We also have the ASF website with a section for alumni where you can update and register if you're not registered in the mailing list. So let's do a quick test. If you can all take out your mobile phones. Raise your hand if you have an Instagram account. Okay, everybody take out your phone right now. This screenshot was 2 days ago, and we had 200 members that followed us on Instagram. Let's see if we can double that. So I'm going to give you a few moments right now. Does anybody have a count somewhere? Let's keep going, or else you're not going to hear any other speakers. All right, you guys get the point. So it's the same Twitter handle. There's the ASF Institutional Advancement Office that has the Alumni Relations Department. You can reach out by phone. Please find a way to get on our radar and also be proactive to be on our radar. Thank you very much for allowing me a few minutes to tell you about the ASF Alumni Association. Let's get back to the guys. Thank you.
I'm not really good with high heels. I put a napkin on, but you could tell. So now it just kind of hurts. No, everybody here is a real rock star. And especially Teru, Manuel, Hugo, they're in charge of this beautiful spot, this beautiful place. The audio is perfect always. Everything is perfectly in check thanks to them, and they're always staying late for us. So thank you. Thank you very much, guys. Our next rock star is such a treat. Nobody wanted to come and introduce him, so I'm going to introduce him myself. This is Adrian Justus, and he's such an awesome violinist. Give him a round of applause.
¿Ya? Ahora sí, perfecto.
I'm not allowed to talk.
Good evening to everybody. It's an honor for me to be here in my school. It doesn't look like my school. But it's great. I'm enthralled by seeing this school develop and become much more when we were here. I want to thank my parents for having the intelligence of enrolling their three children, Mauricio and Tamara, in this wonderful school. And speaking about truths, right? This is one of the topics. Just as we hear music with our ears, we must hear our inner truth, each one of us, I believe. And when I was 14 years old, I had the privilege of playing in Japan. And over there, especially at that time, I'm speaking a century ago, the customs in Japan were extremely different. Of course, you used to sit down, kneeling, and the food was completely different. I thought that the was, guacamole. Yeah. That really brought me a lot of trouble. And I don't want to speak about the sake that I drank. But in any case, I'm 14. But in any case, when I got on stage and played my violin, I found the communication, the language of music, the universality of this language as something that just took me. Before that, when I was around 6, 7 years old, we performed Oliver, the play, in not this hall, in a much humbler stage. Nice. I thought it was big at that time. With Miss Florio. The drama department and that really made me, at least, speaking personally, when I came on stage, I felt alive. I felt that this was my home, and it continues to be, thank God. I have so many memories of so many influential teachers. Today I saw Mrs. Montes de Oca here. Miss Goldsmith, Miss Hurley, that once said, "Hey, dejen de bullearlo. a mí. Van a ver, denle tiempo. Tiene talento, denle chance, denle chance.
Thank you.
We will perform for you, by violin and myself, Paganini Caprice number 5.
Va a tocar otro.
Sí, 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 sí.
This is, it reminds me of an audition, of a tuba audition, where he plays. And he says, can you play something lyrical? Thank you. I'm going to play for you something lyrical, which is Estrellita, Manuel M. Ponce. The arranger is Yasha Heifetz, the great Yasha Heifetz, who arranged this song by Manuel M. Ponce, Estrellita.
Bobby, levanta la mano. Él nos está pichando la comida a todos. Un aplauso para Bobby. Vayan al Punta Arena y al Porcorroso, ¿verdad, Bobby? Sí, cómo no. Oigan, thank you very much a la mantenimiento. 130 years of ASF takes a lot of heavy lifting. Y los señores de mantenimiento salen al quite en todo. Entonces, todo lo que está acomodado hoy es gracias a ellos. Entonces, si los ven, ahí les dan las gracias. Yo iba en el 2002 con Andrea y Rubén, obvio éramos unos freaks desde entonces. Nos fuimos juntos a Tequisquiapan o Tequisquitengo, no me acuerdo, a un curso de poesía y descubrimos que no éramos tan talentosos como pensábamos, pero, que me pague acá en la luz, pero que a Rubén le fue muy bien, entonces ahorita les voy a platicar de eso. Andrea lo va a rostear un poquito. Un aplauso, por favor.
Hola, yo soy Andrea. I got to know Ruben at a poetry workshop in Tequisquiapan, as Daniela said. Daniela, him, and I went there for a week. We were terrible poets, but something that really struck me about Ruben, besides that he looked like a Latin William Dafoe, was that he is someone who always thought outside the box. While some of us were trying to decide on a career that would mark our professional future, he was not worrying about that. He was volunteering at the Red Cross. When some of us were realizing that we had totally screwed up choosing a career that would mark our professional future, he was in New York helping people with the Red Cross. When some of us were striving to get hired at corporations, working extra hours to get a raise, etc., Ruben was changing the future of women in the Middle East with Doctors Without Borders and other organizations. It's thanks to people like him who think beyond their comfortable proximity and realize that there are other realities and share their experience out there that significant changes can be made inside the box. It's an honor to present him. Thank you, Ruben.
¿Ya ves? Thank you. How on earth did I get here? Literally, like right here and everywhere else. I think it's a question that I've always asked myself, and it all started here. But the first time that I made the link between how my life has turned out and ASF, I was in a bunker in the Central African Republic during the Civil War, surrounded there by my colleagues, doctors, nurses, logisticians who had come from all over the world to provide health care there. Under the sound of AK-47s and the explosions of rocket-propelled grenades, I did the only sensible thing that a human being does in a moment like that, which is ask, how did I get here? and it was there in that moment, in that room, sweating and scared and excited to be there as well, that I thought about this one moment here at ASF that I think in one way or another has marked every moment since. On the school bus. I was on the school bus and we were going home. It was the end of the day. And one of my classmates, she was younger than me. Maybe she was 7 years old, and she's standing in the aisle and she won't sit down because she's talking to her friends. And the Miss del camión le dicen, I can't remember her name, siéntate, sit down, and she doesn't. And so she says again, siéntate, and she doesn't. And so finally the Miss comes up to her and says, sterner, please sit down. And this little girl, I'll never forget this for as long as I live. And this girl, this tiny little girl facing up against this woman, she turns and says, ¿Cómo te atreves a hablarme así? Yo le voy a decir a mi papá que tú me tocaste feo y te van a correr y te vas a morir de hambre. It wasn't the impunity of that which was shocking. I think any of us living in Mexico were used to displays like that. But there were two things that shocked me. First was watching this woman, this grown woman, with children of her own, reduced to a child. Ay, no seas así, por favor, yo solo estoy haciendo mi trabajo. That some of us don't have the right to the same kind of language. And the second shocking thing was the discussion that happened between the classmates who said no, who spoke up, who said something. And I think those are values that are primarily things that we have here in ASF that I'm very proud to be of, as we should all be proud. I was deeply affected by this moment, and I thought about it a lot. How do some people have more privilege than others? What is it? Is it luck? Is it God? Is it destiny? We were smoking pot back then and getting a little freaky, and so maybe it was karma. Well, what was it? And I don't know that we ever found the answer, but at ASF we asked the question, and in asking the question, we developed a landscape and a tools. I decided that for me, without an answer, what I did have is a voice and a privilege that I could use to speak for those who could not for themselves, beginning with the Mexican Red Cross as a volunteer while I was still at ASF, and later working in some of the most forbidding contexts of the world, in some very unique conditions, with some remarkable human beings who were willing to put their lives on the line for what they believed in, even though their sense of fashion sometimes was a little misguided. Part of my job primarily was to negotiate with government armed forces, in this case, whether it was the US military in Haiti, or in this case, the Chadian army in Central African Republic, as well as armed non-state actors, as this autonomous self-defense group, again in CAR. And we did that because you have two sides with guns, and in the middle, a world of civilians with no access to health care. And we would show up and say, well, hey, we're gonna set up a hospital here, and we have no guns, and all we have is medicine, and please don't shoot us. It was exhilarating. I got to wake up every single day surrounded by people, knowing that I was doing exactly what I was put on earth to do. A sense of purpose, a sense of mission. I was speaking with Daniela, and it was like, I was that, the white shining knight in armor, come to save the day. What could possibly go wrong? It was a certainty that could not last. And the second great epiphany was in Chad. The rains had not come, and a tremendous malnutrition crisis was abreast. At that time, I was the head of the emergency team for Doctors Without Borders, and our job was to travel the country and assess the scope of the crisis, conducting large epidemiological studies and determining where we were going to intervene medically. And I remember driving into this one village, and the desert was parched, and we're driving in, and in the outskirts of the village are the women and the children, and they're working the fields. There's not much there in the fields to work. And as we drive up, underneath a big tree in the center of the village are all the men sitting. And we're there to discuss women's health care. And I was furious. I don't know if it was the heat or the exhaustion of a few years of hard conditions, but it made no sense to me, because what I saw in that moment, and we had someone there taking a photo, I don't know how clear, but the women are back there. And it wasn't their absence. I think for anyone working in this field, we recognize the absence of women at decision-making to be something that's normal, something we're trying to work on. What shocked me was how normal it was. How normal it was to be discussing issues that pertain to these women without them present. And I started becoming a little obsessed, just as I had been years before with that school bus incident. And I looked at this photo, and I realized that it wasn't just that the women were absent. They weren't marked by a void or an emptiness, but rather that here a discussion was happening that we had no clue of. Values were being exchanged and negotiated. Desires, dreams, hopes were happening. I was angry with those men. And the more I thought about it, and the more I looked at this photo, thinking, asking the question, the more I saw that I myself, in that, could not be separate. And the story of the white knight in shining armor became spurious. And I saw that I too was part of that system. And so just like in the school bus and just like at ASF we spoke, I started asking, well, what does that mean for me? I took that idea and decided to take a sabbatical year, and I was going to figure out all these things and these problems with women and underrepresentation, and then I was going to fix it. It's been 5 years later and I still haven't fixed it. In 2013, I founded the Academy with my business partner, a woman, and we started teaching women in the arts of power, influence, persuasion, and negotiation. Starting with small sold-out classes, gradually growing bigger, and living in a very different world with a company with a very different gender balance, which has been interesting. We started working with a number of Hollywood actresses, coming to terms with their own experiences of power and powerlessness. And in the wake of Me Too, we've gained a tremendous amount of media attention. We've trained thousands of women, and we hope to continue to train thousands more. There was a last epiphany that I want to share. I was at a company, and we were sitting there, and they said, well, you know, we really want the women in our organization to speak more often at meetings because they speak less than men. I said, that's great, we have programs for that. We can totally make that happen. What are we going to do to get the men to speak less? And the guy goes, well, no, hold on, we thought we were gonna hire you because you were different. We don't want the men to, we want everybody to speak equally. And the absurdity of the problem became clear. And it stuck in my head. Because never in the history of the world, or rarely, have people in power voluntarily given that power up. In a world of limited resources, rarely have people given those up. And if we're going to speak about women entering into positions of power, we have to talk about men. And we have to talk about their shame, and we have to talk about their power. And the reason I think this is important is because we're living in a world with problems we have not solved, having the conversation that we've been having. When I look at the silence of women, I'm optimistic, because I believe that that silence is not null and void, that within that is the creativity and the imagination that perhaps we so desperately need. I'll leave you with a final thought experiment. It's from game theory. So you've got two men, and each man has 100 sheep. And below in the valley, there's enough grass, but only enough grass that 100 sheep survive. Both men do the logical thing and race all their sheep to the bottom of the valley. How many sheep survive? None. There isn't enough time. There aren't enough resources. But what I believe, and I think is so well exemplified by ASF and our teachers and classmates, is that there is an infinity of imagination to redistribute what little we have so that all of us can make it out alive. From believing that I would speak for others in that noble, heroic effort, to see my own life as creating the spaces for those who have not had a chance to speak for themselves. I think that's a conversation that started here at ASF, believing fully in the values of justice, understanding, and truth. I am very proud to be here today with these incredible speakers, to be an alumni of this school. I am so excited to see what tomorrow's alumni will create in the world. Thank you.
For me, right? So we have one more speaker to go, and before I introduce him, I would like to thank the hosting committee. So as Nikki said before, the alumni is divided in committees, and the best one is the hosting one. They're awesome. They help us put everything together. They're always so organized. I never have to call them. They never have to call me. They're fantastic. Michelle Trois, thank you for heading this committee, and we hope you have the patience to head it for very many more years. So our next and final speaker graduated in 1986. See? Yes, you. His name is David, and he is the Latin American editor for the Wall Street Journal.
Well, those are some hard acts to follow. Thanks for the invitation, and thanks for coming out tonight. I'm what you might call in baseball terms a pinch hitter. The Alumni Association wanted to invite my brother Jeff to give a talk. As some of you may know, Jeff is the general manager of the Houston Astros, so it would have been very exciting to hear him talk about what it's like to win a World Series, but instead you get me. I'm sorry about that. But like Jeff, I was born and raised in Mexico. My dad likes to say that he took a wrong left turn in San Antonio in 1964, and here we are. But I always felt it was an advantage to be an American raised in Mexico. I felt it gave me perspective on both countries that I otherwise wouldn't have had. And I'm a big believer in perspective. One of my favorite anecdotes involves a group of Mexican businessmen that traveled to Israel in the mid-1990s, and they met with then Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin. And over dinner and drinks, one of the businessmen told him the old Porfirio Diaz saying, "Poor Mexico, so close to the United States and so far from God." And Yitzhak Rabin started laughing, and he said, "Well, it all depends on your perspective. I would say poor Israel, so far from the United States and so close to God." I think another way we can get perspective is through kids. My kids, I'm sure all of our kids, ask the greatest questions. My boy Bobby once asked me, "Why don't trees have eyes?" Andrew has routinely asked me how I can maintain a faith in God. And they've both asked me a question that I think most kids growing up in Mexico, especially those who have the privilege to travel abroad, will say. Why are there so many poor people in Mexico? Why is Mexico so much poorer than the United States? And as a journalist working in Latin America these last 25 years, I've tried to answer that question myself. Why didn't the American dream become the Latin American dream, and what can we do about it? As many of you who will have read books like Guns, Germs, and Steel no doubt know, there's a lot of factors involved in this, from geography to things like the size of raindrops that fall somewhere. I once ran across a very well-traveled man. He was actually a spy. And he drew a glass on a sheet of paper for me. And he said, "This is Mexico without the Baja California and the Yucatan." And he drew mountains here, and he drew mountains there, and he drew mountains here. And he said, "That's Mexico, that's Colombia, and that's Afghanistan." And he said, all three countries are plagued by violence and regional problems for a very simple reason. Mountains make communication and contact with sharing ideas difficult. Mountains can make you poor. It's no coincidence that the poorest part of the United States remains the mountains of Appalachia. Now, today I want to talk about four things that I've seen in particular over the course of my career that I think made Latin America not be able to achieve the American dream so far. And they are inequality, institutions, or lack thereof, impunity, and insecurity. And all four of these are linked. So let's start at the top, inequality. Latin America is the most unequal region in the world. As of 2014, the richest 10% controlled 70% of the wealth, and the bottom 10% controlled about 1%. From 2002 to 2015, the fortune of Latin America's billionaires grew by 21% per year, which is 7 times the average economic growth rate of the region. Now, much of this money was then taken to offshore banks. So in a way, the region's growth was captured in large part, in disproportionate part, by a small elite that then took the money outside of the country. In 2005, the Wall Street Journal did a series of stories on challenges to the American dream in the United States, and this started exploring growing inequality in the US and the effects this might have on society. And I called my editor and I said, "Oh, you think you guys have a problem in the States? You should get a load of Mexico." So we decided to include a story, and for that story, I went to Tehuacan, Puebla. And you may have heard of Tehuacan. It's the center of the mineral water company, and it has Mexico's 3rd largest egg company, El Calvario. It should be a city that's done well and that's created a huge middle class over the decades. And it hasn't. I went to a local public school there, a middle school, and I asked the kids what they wanted to be when they grew up. And they all just stared blankly at me, and I said, well, come on, you've got to want to do something. You want to be an astronaut, a lawyer, a doctor, a professional soccer player? And again, there was silence. So I said, well, okay, what do your parents do? And all of their parents, without exception, were either campesinos or laborers. And I said, well, do you want to do what your parents did? No! And I said, well, then what do you want to do? And again, there was silence. It was clear that no one had ever asked them this question. Till a little girl raised her hand. And I said, yeah. She said, well, go to the United States. And I said, well, wait, how many of you want to go to the United States? Every kid in that classroom but one raised their hand. And for a very simple reason. They felt they couldn't achieve their dream where they were. Now, how did Latin America become so unequal? The short answer, as with many things, is history. It's going to be 80 years from now that Mexico and most Latin American countries will be independent nations as long as they were colonies of Spain and Portugal. And in that colonial period, their economies were marked by an abundance of natural resources and a lot of local indigenous labor that created an economy where you relied on raw materials, cheap labor, and low government taxation. Mexico, Bolivia, and Peru had a lot of silver, and places like Brazil and Cuba, as well as the southern US, had soil and climate that lent themselves to cash crops like sugar, cotton, and coffee that were all highly valued, all attracted a lot of investment, and concentrated land holdings in a small amount of hands. Up to the 1960s, just 2% of landholders in Guatemala controlled 80% of the country's land. Now, as I said, a lot of Latin America had indigenous populations which worked these. In the US and in Brazil, they didn't, so they resorted to importing slaves. Brazil imported 4 million slaves and didn't abolish slavery until 1888. It was the last country in the hemisphere. The USA, of course, fought a bloody civil war over this. By contrast, in Canada and the northern US colonies, the climate didn't favor those cash crops, and there were no great deposits of minerals to be found. So it became a culture of small farmers that ended up creating a system of rules where people were treated more or less equally. I've often thought that the single best thing that could have happened to the US was that there weren't giant deposits of gold and silver, or that the northern part of the country didn't have a cotton economy. What would the US have been like had there only been Atlantas and Richmonds instead of New Yorks, Bostons, and Chicagos? A resource-based economy promotes a culture based on who you know instead of what you know. How do you get a mining concession? Well, surely it helps to know somebody in the Spanish royal court. If your economic relationships are based more on who you know rather than what you know, then hard work and entrepreneurship suffers. If you're going to inherit daddy's company, why work that hard and take risks? And education also suffers. Only a few years after its founding, in the early 1600s, the Massachusetts Bay Colony made primary school mandatory for every person. It took Brazil until the mid-1960s to do that. Today, 7 out of 10 Latin Americans drop out of high school. Now, why should we worry about inequality? In some ways, we shouldn't. Communism showed us that trying to create inequality by force is a disaster. But, and you knew there was going to be a but, too much inequality leads to inequality of opportunity. And that's where things start to get dicey. Economists would say inequality of opportunity then hurts social and economic mobility. And that's fancy economist language for basically saying that's the ability of someone who is poor to climb up the social and economic ladder. If you grow up poor in Mexico, you only have a 10% shot at making the middle class. In the US, your chances are 30, and in Europe, they're between 40 and 50. So who cares if the poor can't become rich, right? That's their problem. Well, actually, it's all of our problem. For starters, economic growth suffers. As I've mentioned, if the poor can't get wealthy through hard work, then why try hard? And if the rich don't have to innovate and are simply going to inherit their company, then they don't have to try hard and take risks. In 1980, Mexico's economy was nearly 4 times the size of South Korea, and per capita income was the same. Then South Korea targeted export growth and made sure everyone had a tertiary education, at least college, and broadband. Today, South Korea's economy is 20% bigger than that of Mexico, and its per capita wealth is 3 times bigger. Another terrible side effect, this keeps going backwards rather than forwards. Another terrible side effect of inequality is what I call the junior effect. We have a few of them in the ASF from time to time. A junior is a daddy's boy that the old saying goes was born on third base and thinks he hit a triple. I don't know how well this will work, but you see there, that's the head of the oil workers union, his daughter flying around in daddy's private jet, going to Paris, buying $13,000 Hermès handbags, and the like.
Miami, here we go.
Ellos son los nobles. El mi rey.
Les presento a la Cuba más grande del mundo.
El hipster.
Lucía.
Carlos, no puedes estarme acosando en la escuela.
Y la princesa.
Les tengo una noticia huge. ¡Nos vamos a casar!
No conocen límites.
Compadre, ¿tú habías visto esto? Los estados de cuenta de mis hijos. Necesitan mano dura esos niños.
Pero están por recibir una lección.
Cancelaron mi Black. Y mi Black. Cancelaron todo.
¿Me puedes explicar por qué nos están quitando todo como si estuviéramos en Venezuela?
Porque descubrieron un fraude.
¿Y si nos entregamos?
Ahora tendrán que conseguir lo que nunca han tenido. Trabajo.
¿Si me pasan su pasaje, porfa?
Sin lujos.
O sea, no voy a salir así vestida de zorra.
Sin ayuda. Y sin tarjetas de crédito.
¿Qué es eso?
El pecero de Lucho es pirata, pa.
Esto no es porra de los Pumas, así que córtate el cabello, rasurado.
Pero eso sí, nobles hasta el final.
¿Qué es esto? Parece Tailandia.
Nosotros.
You get the idea. I loved that movie when it came out. I did a story about it, and I went to go interview Gaz Al-Azraqi, an ASF alum. And I said, this is brilliant. I want to do a story about how your movie is the movie about Mexican juniors. And he said, oh, I'm a recovering junior myself. Another effect that inequality has on societies is that it radicalizes politics. Haiti, to this day, has not recovered from its struggle for independence, which destroyed its economy. Mexico, during the Porfiriato, grew a lot, but inequality grew so much that it was followed by the revolution, and 1 million people died. I once had a friend who covered 3 military coups in Bolivia in the same week. Voters who are frustrated in these places start looking for answers, and they start believing in politicians who come along and say, I can fix this. It's all the fault of the rich, or the corporations, or the foreigners, or shady interests. Why do you think Hugo Chavez won the elections in Venezuela in 1998? Because Venezuelans were fed up with the country's oil wealth not being more evenly distributed. For too many decades, Latin American politics has veered dangerously from the extreme right to the extreme left, without stopping in the middle. Between 1962 and 1966, there were 9 military coups in Latin America, nearly all against governments that the military feared were becoming communist. Too often in Latin America, the politics has been a choice between Che and Pinochet. The results of this radicalism have been horrific. Cuba, virtually destroyed. Venezuela, virtually destroyed. Right-wing military dictatorships having killed tens of thousands of people in Chile, Argentina, Brazil, and Uruguay. 3 months ago, the Argentine colonel who was in charge of the death flights, which they would get suspected leftists from their homes, asleep, put them on a plane, and throw them out over the ocean, was condemned to spend the rest of his life in jail. He expressed no remorse. He said he was not sorry for what he had done, because he felt he had saved the country. Now, I've gone on too long about inequality, so I'll quickly link the remaining 3. Institutions, impunity, and insecurity. My wife jokingly calls this my institution speech, and she says it's terribly boring, so I'll make it fast. The older I get, the more I realize the fate of nations rests on the quality of their institutions. Now, what are these? These are the bodies that govern how we all interact with each other. The courts, the the police, the government bureaucracy, political parties, universities, the media. Latin America's never bothered to build good institutions. Why not? Well, if you were a wealthy businessman in colonial Mexico and you're exploiting your workers, you want justice you can buy. If you're a state governor of the PRI and you have arrangements with the local drug gangs, you don't want a strong police force coming in there and arresting the guy that you're negotiating with. So it's never been a priority. Yeah, my friend, the Peruvian president's comment is already up there, but it's a classic in Latin American history. For my friends, everything. For my enemies, the law. One reason why I didn't have somebody present me was because of the biggest portion of my friends growing up here left. And the reason that is because this was about 1982, 1983, when there was a huge economic collapse, as you may well remember. So the school stopped a lot of after-school activities, a lot of the American teachers left, and it was a bit of a crisis. Well, Mexico has learned from that and built good institutions when it comes to financial stability. They built an independent central bank and a finance ministry that was staffed by economics PhDs from the best universities in the world. Mexico has not done that yet for security. The heads of the PGR are political hacks. In one case was the ex-employee of Televisa, who know nothing about security and law and order. We're not hiring the PhDs and the best criminologists from the leading universities in the world, so I think that's a job that remains to be done. How does the judicial system work for the poor? Well, you can ask my friend Toño Zúñiga. He was walking along the streets of Ixtapalapa one day. He was grabbed from behind by some police and thrown in a jail cell. He spent the next few years in jail, accused of a murder he didn't commit. The police had no evidence for this whatsoever, had grabbed him off the street. He was at a tianguis and he was a street seller. All the people in the stalls around him said, no, Toño was there with us that day. And they all testified. The court threw out the testimony and he was sentenced to 20 years in jail. His verdict was upheld and he was released only because a group of enterprising documentary makers and lawyers did a documentary about him and eventually got him released. The judge and the cop continued to work in the Mexico City judicial system. 95% of convictions in Mexico have zero scientific evidence. Just 2% of Mexicans have a lot of faith in their government, same as Brazilians. When you don't trust the institutions in your society, the only people you end up trusting is your family. There's no concept of the greater good, a social compact. When someone gets behind the wheel to drive in Mexico, it's every person for themselves. Rules go out the window. The old saying, el que no tranza, no avanza. The lack of trust is one reason why Latin America's rich give far less than other rich people around the planet. They don't trust charities to spend the money well and not pocket it. It's the same reason they lag in paying their taxes as well. If the government's simply going to steal the money, why pay taxes? But it's a vicious circle. Less tax money means less money to pay for things like good public schools and good police forces to keep people safe. Now, when your institutions don't work, what do you get? Nope, went too far. Impunity. You get jabidu. Mexican politicians steal because they know they won't get caught. Javier Duarte stole $3 billion before it was such a scandal that he got jailed. But all of the other Mexican governors that have stolen $1 billion, $2 billion, well, they're still free. There are other kinds of impunity too. If you commit a murder in Mexico, the chances that you get away with it are between 97 and 98%. And that figure is a big reason why Latin America struggles with the last I, insecurity. Simply put, Latin America is the most dangerous part of the world. It's not even close. Latin America has 7% of the world's population and 36% of global murders. 4 countries alone, Mexico, Venezuela, Colombia, and Brazil, account for 1 in every 5 murders around the world. I'd always imagined that parts of Africa were the most dangerous, or the Middle East is the most dangerous. Egypt has a murder rate of 5 per 100,000. Nigeria has a murder rate of 10. Costa Rica has a murder rate of 12. And Costa Rica is one of our success stories. All of this crime, of course, affects development. Are you going to risk your family capital opening up a changarro or a farmacia if the moment you open it up, a gang's going to come and take all your money away, well, you're not going to. The World Bank estimates that violence costs Mexico and other countries 2% of GDP a year. Now, what can you do? Well, you can pay your taxes. Please don't raise your kids to be juniors. Cultivate the country's institutions. There's a lot of great civil society movements happening right now, like Mexicanos contra la Corrupción and others. Help them. It's important. Help the governors and the political class realize that to create safe streets, we're going to need good cops, good judges, and good prison wardens. Give to philanthropy, care for the poor, and avoid the siren song of populist politicians. Now, I know I've been a little bit of a bummer in this talk, and I apologize for that. I do want to say Mexico obviously is a wonderful country. There's a reason why I'm back here. Just the other day, I was walking along in Polanco, and I was on my way to work, and I saw these flowers being put up everywhere, and they were celebrating Los Colores de Mexico. The people here are obviously wonderful, which is why it breaks my heart that we have these challenges that are overcomable. And I address this to you guys because this is an elite community. There are a lot of powerful people that are parents and alumni in this school. So I urge you all to take action, and if you do, maybe Latin America can finally fulfill its own dreams of truth, justice, and understanding, and your grandkids will thank you. Thanks a lot.
Ok, ahora sí ya los voy a dejar ir. Nada más tres compromisos que quiero que hagamos todos aquí ahorita adelante, todos quienes estamos aquí. 3 cosas que van a hacer todos los que están aquí. Bueno, 4. Una es que se van a registrar si son exalumnos, por favor, asf.edu.mx/alumni, /update. Todos regístrense, mail, teléfono, nombre, etcétera, etcétera. Llevamos 770,000 pesos, esa será la cifra final hasta ahorita del Virtual Race, tenemos hasta el final de abril. El board tiene 60,000 pesos y nosotros 55,000, qué oso, oigan, o sea, en el board son ¿cuántos? Son 30 y nosotros somos 130 años, enough. Entonces todos vayan a depositar un poquito de lana a nombre de Alumni, para que le podamos ganar al board. Luego hay un booth, que es el objetivo final, hay un booth al lado de Starbucks. Sí saben que hay un Starbucks en la escuela, ¿no? Hay un booth al lado de Starbucks. Please pasen y déjenle a Mr. Williams un PG-13 message. o R, nadie lo va a ver. Y la última cosa es, toda la gente que no vino, díganles que ya no son mis amigos, que ya no quiero saber de ellos, que ya no regresen. No, que vengan el año que entra, pasen la voz. Este es un eventazo, todo el mundo la pasa increíble, hay muy poca gente de la comunidad de exalumnos entera, entonces todos ustedes son voceros de sus generaciones, vayan y pasen el chisme. Y nada, vayan, esperen, antes de que los mande a comer y a tomar, el Alumni Association, officers, quieren hacerle un regalo a los speakers, y pues nada, que todos pasen para una foto final y un big round of applause, ¿no? David, Mau, muchas gracias, Sonia, Rubén, Adrián. Guys, gracias por venir aquí, es jueves, es una lata y tráfico, la gran Tenochtitlán es súper traviesa y aún así están aquí estos warriors. Nada, ya váyanse a tomar y a comer, todos, aléale. Wear it, you gotta wear it. No, thank you guys.
A tomar y a beber.